Good afternoon, and today you're cooking with Jima and Jeanine. For today's recipe, we're going to be making chickpea noodle soup. For this recipe, here are the tools you're going to need. You're going to need a pot, a carrot peeler or vegetable peeler, can opener, 1 cup or cup measuring. You're going to need a tablespoon, half a teaspoon measurement, a knife, and a cutting board. For the ingredients, you'll need 2 medium onions, 2 medium carrots, 2 to 3 medium-sized celery stalks. You're going to need 8 cups of broth. You're going to need 2 cups of macaroni noodles, a cup of chickpeas. You're going to need some salt. You're going to need half a teaspoon of turmeric, half a teaspoon of curry powder, and 2 tablespoons of parsley flakes, and 1 bay leaf.
So while Farrah's doing the cutting, I'll just let you know a little bit about this chickpea noodle soup. So it's really quite a wholesome, it's a plant-based soup with chickpeas being the source of plant protein. It combines the protein-rich legumes with vegetables and pasta, making it both filling and nutritious. Chickpeas, for those of you who may not know, are actually part of the pea family, not the bean family. They're actually not a true bean. And they're also called garbanzo beans. It's just another name for chickpeas. They're really one of the most versatile pantry foods because you can eat them as is, you can roast them and use them as a snack, you can toss them into salads or soups, you can blend them into hummus, you can mash them and use them in a sandwich, and they're actually quite delicious. It's really a great plant-based protein because 1 cup of chickpeas delivers about 15 grams of protein and about 12 grams of fiber. So it's a really strong combination of fullness and steady energy. Canada's Food Guide, for those of you who might know, suggests that the majority of our protein should actually come from plant-based protein. So although most times we're used to eating animal protein in the past, introducing plant-based protein into the diet is a really great thing, not only for its nutrition, but also in terms of cost. Plant-based protein they're actually much less expensive than buying chicken or hamburger at the grocery store. So if you haven't tried chickpeas or lentils in the past, then this is a great opportunity and a great recipe for actually trying that. There's lots of fiber in this recipe. As I said, 1 cup of chickpeas delivers about 12 grams of fiber. And so the fiber helps keep our digestive system happy and healthy. So our gut remains really happy. Chickpeas also support our heart health because the fiber, and any fiber that's in any food item, actually helps lower the bad cholesterol or the LDL cholesterol, which we sometimes think of as the bad cholesterol. And for those of you who may be diabetic as well, fiber also helps to stabilize blood sugar. And when we eat foods that are high in fiber, they tend to make us feel full quicker. So it may be a means of helping us with weight management because we're eating less food, because we feel full quicker. So chickpeas are not only nutrient dense, but they're not only filling, they're also very nutrient dense. So they provide a great source of iron, magnesium, potassium, folate, manganese, and all of those nutrients support red blood cell production, muscle function, and our overall metabolism. So as you can tell from my little chat on chickpeas, they're very, very good for you. And this is just kind of a wonderful soup it does provide some sodium and potassium in there, so it's great for hydration. It's great for if you're feeling a little bit under the weather. So people always think that if you feel a little flu-y and not feeling well, then chicken noodle soup is the way to go. This is a take on chicken noodle soup in that it's chickpea noodle soup. So it makes you feel really good, cozy, and comforting when you're feeling a little bit under the weather. For this recipe, we've actually used canned chickpeas, which I will open. And when you open the chickpeas, you rinse them and then drain them, and then we'll use them as is. Now, you could also use dried chickpeas in this recipe, but I can tell you that dried chickpeas are a little bit more work. You actually have to soak them Ideally, overnight would be best to get them a little bit soft. And then what you have to do is rinse them, and then you have to simmer them in fresh water for about an hour to an hour and a half before they actually get soft enough that they can actually be added to the soup. So it's a lot easier to actually use a can of chickpeas than the dried chickpeas in this particular recipe. So we're just going to drain those. So the interesting thing about this recipe, this particular soup, like any other soup, it's very versatile in that it calls for onions and carrots, but whatever you have in your pantry, you could use in the soup. So for instance, it could be cabbage. You could grate that up or cut that up small, turnip, parsnip. And if you choose not to use pasta in the soup, you could also maybe use some rice or sweet potato cut up small. So there's lots of options for this soup. The spices that are in this soup are turmeric and curry powder, as well as the parsley. And I don't know if anyone knows about turmeric and curry powder, but they add color because, as you can see, turmeric is bright yellow. So it adds some color, but they also add some warmth and a really lovely flavor to the soup. So turmeric has some actually health benefits. So it contains what's called a bioactive compound called curcumin, and that's actually linked to anti-inflammatory properties, and it provides antioxidants effects. So that's similar to what we say like with a blueberry having antioxidant properties. It's the same with turmeric, so it's pretty healthy. Curry powder,
I combined already.
okay, so the curry powder, as you can see, is also yellow, kind of a lighter yellow than the turmeric. But curry powder is actually a spice mix. So it's a mixture of turmeric, coriander, cumin, and ginger. And all of those spices together are actually associated with antioxidant or anti-inflammatory benefits. So the spices that are in this soup really will add some health benefit. They're not just to add some nice flavor. So, but you will notice that at the end, the soup will have a yellow color because of the spices that we're adding. And parsley, of course, we're using dried parsley, but feel free to add some fresh parsley or any other fresh herb that you might have could be substituted for the parsley. So, yeah. Today we're using elbow macaroni as the pasta for this particular soup. It is a small macaroni, and the recommendation is to actually use small pasta for this recipe, because what you essentially want is you want something that's easy to spoon up with the chickpeas and the broth. So if you use like a longer pasta like spaghetti, linguine, or fettuccine, it just gets all tangled up and gets really, really mushy. So any short or small pasta can work. Things like a little orzo, small shells, small bow ties, rotini.
Any of the smaller?
Yeah, there's another one called ditalini, which I've never had before. I used the small bow ties before, and I've used the small little corkscrews, and they work quite well. Yeah. So just as long as it's something small. Yeah.
All right, now that those vegetables are ready and sauteed, we're going to go ahead and put our 8 cups of broth in. You go ahead and use 2 containers if you want. Those are to your 8 cups. So we're going to go ahead and add in all the spices. So we have our parsley, our turmeric, and our curry.
Give it a salt.
Give it a nice stir. And then we're going to bring this to a boil.
One of the key things is to wait until the soup is almost completely done. So about 5 to 10 minutes beyond when it's done, and then add the pasta, and then cook it for an additional 5 to 10 minutes. If you put the pasta in at the beginning, what happens is that the pasta is completely taken up by all the broth and the juice that's in the soup, and it absorbs it, and so the pasta just becomes really, really fat, and then you have no liquid in the soup. So wait until close to the end of the cooking time before you add the pasta. And then there's adequate time, the last 5 to 10 minutes. It's a very, very easy soup to make, but really, really nutritious. One thing that you could do to make it a little bit more nutritious is you could use whole wheat pasta instead of the white pasta. It does add a little bit additional fiber. However, keep in mind that we're still getting about 12 grams of fiber per cup of chickpeas. So that the soup itself has a lot of fiber. But you could add whole wheat pasta, and you could also, which I like to do, is use low sodium broth and then add some additional salt to the soup, but at least then you're controlling the amount of sodium that's actually in the soup.
That's right.
So
I'm gonna go ahead and add that bay leaf. And the chickpeas while we're waiting for that to boil. Okay, now that our vegetables are all tender and it's boiled down or boiled up, we're gonna add our 2 cups of macaroni. And we're just gonna cook that for 5 to 10 minutes, stirring occasionally for our soup to be complete. All right, time's up. It's been about 50 minutes and look at that. Chickpea noodle